No CGI is really just Invisible CGI Part 2 of 5.
Famous for flipping a truck,
Oh, nice.
crashing an airplane,
But not from the air. No, it's so dramatic.
he's known
So it was, it's the Christopher Nolan films. That's basically what they're doing. Oh, he said it right here. Because it was Batman, and then it was Tenet.
to all self-proclaimed film nerds for hating CGI.
That part is a little dramatic.
It is hard to figure out what exactly Christopher Nolan thinks about special effects, visual effects, and CGI. His films have been nominated for 4 visual effects Oscars. They have won 3 times, 2 times by visual effects supervisor Paul Franklin. So let's ask him.
Because up to that point, I think he'd been concerned that the digital Batcopter would look bogus. And we would prove to him, we'd say, look, you know, here we are. One of these is the real thing. One of these things is not. Which one do you like? If he felt they both felt the same, then that's it. It went into the movie.
Simple. Simple. Do what's best.
Welcome to part 2 of No CGI is really just invisible CGI. If you missed it, please check out part 1 where I show you that almost all the jets in Top Gun Maverick are completely computer graphic 3D 100% CGI. Today we'll find out what it's like to make CGI for Christopher Nolan by taking a deep dive into the Paris cafe scene from Inception with visual effects supervisor Paul Franklin.
That's a CG box that's flying up into the air, but it's mixed in with real live action boxes.
But first,
Yep.
let's look at some common sources of misinformation about no CGI.
Ford versus Ferrari.
Fun fact, there is no CGI in Ford versus Ferrari, posted Alamo Drafthouse. They don't cite a source, but I suspect it was this guy.
Nothing looks CGI.
Nothing is CGI.
Nothing is CGI is what everyone loves to hear, including you, so this spreads like wildfire, with everyone suddenly reporting that the film's racing footage is 100% authentic, with no computer-generated special effects here. Damon insists all the scenes on the track were shot for real without green screen. Damon even said to BBC Radio 2 that there really was no green screen, which is weird because green screen is precisely what the driving scenes use. The actor probably said what he said to emphasize that all the racing stuff was in fact filmed for real and wanted to give due credit to the talented stunt drivers.
And we had an unbelievable second unit team and really good drivers.
It is noble that Matt Damon credits his below-the-line colleagues who helped realize the film and put these amazing scenes on screen, and the stunt drivers certainly deserve great credit for driving the hero cars in almost all shots in the racing scenes. But nothing is CGI hardly describes the many 100% CGI environments and CGI cars in the racing scenes, which, including the factory interior, CGI rain, and complete CGI shots.
Oh my gosh. So much of that is just CGI, but it's like the key points are real for the most part. I mean, when you have actual scenes, I mean, a lot of those were just 100% generated CGI.
More than 1,000 visual effects shots, created by what is ultimately the film production's single largest department, with almost 300 visual effects artists.
You know, on top of the kind of the stunts and the driving, and because all of that stuff is in camera. We have these incredible drivers who are doing all that stuff. You know, none of that is CGI. The CGI is like the crowd.
How do you like them apples?
Yes, the CGI is just the crowd. Just the crowd.
We wanted to do it without CGI, says Ridley Scott about his new Napoleon epic in this interview with YouTube channel History Hits, an otherwise great channel for making history popular. And while showing the 2 biggest CGI shots of the video, they have this unfortunate exchange of words.
What we're looking at here is not CGI.
No, it's all real. I think you feel when it's fake, when it's AI, you know it's somehow artificial. All of this is real.
But he would also say in one of the promos,
I'd have 300 men, 100 horses.
300 men in costumes sounds like a lot, but it's only 10 by 30 people, and when they charge for battle, it looks like this.
Yeah, that's not a lot.
You run out of soldiers really quick, and it certainly won't get you shots like these. "100 horses will get you shots like this, but not this.
Yeah, it just reminds me of like the Lord of the Rings scene where they had like 1,000 horses in that where they're charging towards Minas Tirith. all the Rohirrim, and you see it before, and then you see the after, like the before shot. It's just a few horses sporadic, because there's no way they would have that many horses compact in one spot. There's just a few horses all sprinkled in, and then they re-render it, copy and pasting the horses all over the place. And then it just fills it with horses, and then there's a ton of the Rohirrim charging down into Minas Tirith. Oh, now I want to see Lord of the Rings.
Battlecrowd is one of the best and most logical uses of CGI, as Ridley Scott already
Kingdom of
knows
Heaven.
from films like Kingdom of Heaven and The Last Duel. 10,000 extras need costumes, toilets, and even medical assistants, and getting them into place for the first shot, giving them directions, and resetting their positions between takes delays every day of shooting by many.
The only thing I remember from that movie is, God wills it! God wills it! They would go to massacre people. God wills it! Religion's just great, isn't it? God wills it! It's always done in the name of God.
And shooting these scenes without CGI would take months instead of days, and filming it practically would be an absurd waste of money. And as D-Neck shows in The Rings of Power, digital crowds are so good now that even the guys in the foreground could be completely digital, and you'd never know. Napoleon has more visual effects artists than it has extras from over 10 visual effects companies, including scanning service Visual Skies, which is a company that goes on set to make 3D scans of props, characters, animals, vehicles, and architecture to be handed over to the visual effects companies
to make it
and
easier
converted into full CG assets.
The cannonballs hitting the water alone, that's digital.
Yeah.
Screen Rant, always eager to report on no CGI, took these quotes.
Yeah. I mean, Lord of the Rings is one of those you just have to just power through. The extended cuts, of course. The extended cuts. Yeah. Reminiscences. Yes, absolutely. Got freaking love it. Freaking love it. And seeing the creation of it, seeing the building of the little models just for a few shots, just for a few towers that get blown up. And then they introduce CGI to just make the falling towers look better.
Out of context at face value, and reported that Napoleon's battle scenes would be practical with CGI used specifically for cannon impact effects, mentioning Kingdom of Heaven as another example of Ridley Scott's practical filmmaking. Phrases like minimum CGI, next to no CGI, didn't rely on CGI are nonsensical terms only used by people who have no idea how much CGI they're really talking about. How much is minimum CGI? What does it mean to not rely on CGI? For a movie about Napoleon, apparently a minimum of CGI means you only used CGI for the 19th century France, the exotic locations, and the tens of thousands of soldiers, horses, cannons, battlefields, boats, and explosions in every single battle scene. If you removed the CGI from this film, there would be no battles. Is that not...
It just reminds me of like Monty Python. The very end, they have like 100 people lined up. Get on with it! And then they're about to fight, and then the police come and arrest them. It's just the 100 people that were there for the battle. It is absolutely ridiculous because it just looks funny. It looks funny, which is why they did it in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, because it was a joke. Because when you actually have the people, it looks funny. That's why if you watch Braveheart, they had a lot of people, but guess what? The shots were close. And there are some shots when you're actually watching it where you have like 100 people lined up, and then you get to the very end of the frame, and then like right here at this point, you realize, oh, it's nothing but green grass. There are no more soldiers. But you're not focused on that empty area unless you've seen the film plenty of times. You're focused on Mel Gibson running up and down on his horse, basically drawing courage. It's just how it's always been done. It looks ridiculous when you actually see how few people 100 is.
Relying on CGI? For a movie about an army attacking Jerusalem, apparently a minimum of CGI means you only use CGI for all the army stuff, the battle stuff, and the
everything.
Completely CGI Jerusalem stuff. By that logic, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom used a minimum of CGI. For a movie that takes place on an exploding dinosaur volcano, because they mostly used CGI for the exploding dinosaur volcano stuff. An epic film like Napoleon was filmed in only 62 days precisely because they chose to use CGI, making Ridley Scott a great filmmaker for using it, not a lesser filmmaker. Ridley Scott is a living legend in the effects communities
Yes, because he knows how to utilize it. He gets just enough realism or real shots to where the actual CGI artists know how to animate everything else. The issue is when someone needs to build a wall from scrap. When someone needs to design a person from scrap. When someone needs to animate a horse running through a battlefield without anything else to go off of. That's where the issue comes from. It's just, you have to utilize it in moderation.
Obvious reasons. He's 85 years old, he has stayed at the absolute top of the game for 40 years, always using state-of-the-art visual effects. And he doesn't give a damn if something is CGI if it helps him tell his story to you. So it's quite odd that he would say something like that.
All of this is real.
Let's investigate. For starters, this quote actually never appears in the interview, it's just a clickbait thumbnail that they made up. Second, we really don't know what clips they were looking at when he said it's all real. Maybe he was talking about these clips.
What we're looking at here is not CGI.
No, it's all real.
And then there's this interview with IGN.
As a rule, do you prefer working with like physical sets and natural conditions rather than CGI?
No, I use CGI as a tool. It's a tool.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's so weird how people are so against it. It's like, no, the only problem is when it becomes the whole film. When it becomes the whole film, you no longer have a film.
And this interview with ABC News.
I want to talk about the epic battle scenes in the film. Now, you're using a lot of cameras in the field rather than relying on CGI for everything. Why did you make that choice?
I had a marvelous CGI man, Charlie Henley, and if I'm going to do makeup, hair, wardrobe, more than 400 soldiers in the morning, the economics start to not make sense. So I draw the line at 400. So I'm looking along 400 men. It's about 200 meters. Everything beyond that, stretching for almost a mile, is Charlie.
Ridley Scott's reply about why he chose to use CGI is very refreshing to hear. But the question is ridiculous. There was no choice on this production to film everything practically. Instead of relying for CGI on everything, nobody would rely on CGI for everything in a film like that. Even George Lucas will have filmed some form of foreground element instead of relying on CGI for everything.
Yeah, it's just like even the original Star Wars, a lot of that was done with nothing but a model and a blue screen in the background so they could animate the starfight in, though the entire dogfight. It's like, and that was basically utilizing CGI. They had to build their own computer in the first Star Wars movie because you couldn't go out and buy a computer at that point in time. They were custom built processors at that point in time. I've seen that documentary way too much. I'll just be honest. I've seen that documentary way too much, but it's always fun seeing the behind the scenes stuff. That's what made me get into filmmaking. I honestly just don't like the guild aspect behind it all. I hate how you have to buy into a guild in order to actually even get your name on a freaking title sheet, or else my name would be on a few.
Where does this nonsense come from? It's as if 100 years of film journalism has been tossed out the window and the only thing they know is to put no CGI in the headline, describing everything from Fast 9 to Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny as movies that favored practical effects.
No.
The Dial of Destiny? Seriously?
CGI here. The John Wick dogs are totally real.
Yeah, of course, except...
Yeah, except for when they're not. Like, most of the fighting scenes, most of them running around, most of them taking bullets, most of... oh my gosh. Behind the scenes of the film making is always cool. Yeah. I mean, it's what made me want to get into creating films. It's just, I don't like the guild system here. I don't like the nepotism here. And it was that, which I just didn't want to pay into a guild. So I'm here.
When they were totally 100% CGI. My favorite kind of no CGI. As demonstrated in this visual effects breakdown by El Ranchito Visual Effects. It's weird though, because this channel seems so credible.
He actually did all his own stunts for the John Wick movies.
Hey,
except
remember
he
in the
didn't.
last episode when I said this movie used no CGI? It's really just like this actor did all their own stunts.
Well, I'll do some fight scenes and then John Wick will get hit by a car, and that's Jackson Spidell, who's an amazing stunt man.
You gonna tell me what happened to you? That's a tale requiring wine.
For season 2 of The Witcher, Christopher Hivju plays Nivellen, part man, part boar, part bear, part Norwegian, part CGI, with a complete CGI.
Part Norwegian. Oh my gosh. I never saw season 2, I'm going to be honest. I never saw season 2. Season 1 was enough for me to realize it wasn't going to be what I expected. And it was proven to be the case.
had provided by ILM. Despite both Netflix and the actor being open about how they used CGI,
and it's a small hole with the camera, captures every movement in my face, and that small piece, it's transformed into with CGI.
You can still read on Screen Rant that Nevellan's beast form was created without a shred of CGI, relying on practical effects only, and that decision pays off spectacularly.
Oh my gosh. It's like they don't even, again, nobody in the West trusts news reports anymore about anything. They'll rate video games that are absolute garbage incredibly highly, ones that are great incredibly low. Same thing with film. They do that all the freaking time. That nobody even most reputable, you know, reviewers, like, they'll read it as a joke, but they won't actually look into it to be like, oh, this is real. This is real. But the funny thing is, most people actually get their news now from X, you know, Twitter, from that, because there will be an article published and then people will actually community note it with real facts, being like, false.
The character possesses a tangible animalistic quality that digital effects could never authentically replicate. My favorite kind of no CGI.
So, but many people think it's all makeup, and that just means that they have done an amazing job.
Despite relying on added explosions, blue screens, CG environments, CG cars, CG bikes, CG trees, and CG stunts, the one-shot from Extraction 2 is commonly described as mostly practical, with Slash Film claiming next to no CGI, specifically citing the background and the helicopter in the train sequence being all real, which they really are not. News outlets are so eager to write no CGI in the headline that besides flat out lying about it, they'll go to ridiculous lengths to come up with examples that are really true. This is Mashable reporting that actually Blade Runner from 1982 was made with no CGI.
Not true. Not true. Just because they didn't have the type of technology back then that they do now doesn't mean they didn't use their own type of generated graphics. Season 1 of Witcher was good. Yeah, I enjoyed it, but I realized what they were gonna do after the fact. After they introduced Siri and them getting together, it's just like, okay, I'm done.
Friendly reminder that CGI in 1982 looked like this. BuzzFeed has 2 astronomically stupid lists of movies that said no to CGI and it paid off big time. Besides the flat-out false examples like claiming Doc Ock's tentacles from Spider-Man 2 didn't use CGI.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I remember this. One of the arms was actually operated by one person, but they were completely CGI. Completely CGI, the majority of them. Only the close-up shots was it real. Like, I think one of them, it's like it's grabbing some. Every time there was a scene where it was grabbing something for him, or it came to him to like talk when he's like, listen to me now. That was a real one. The other 3 in the background were fake.
BuzzFeed goes very far back in time to show movies that really did not use CGI, showing specifically the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters from 1984, the opening crawl from Star Wars from 1977, the Stargate sequence from 2001, A Space Odyssey from 1968, and I shit you not, the house stunt from Buster Keaton's Steamboat Bill Jr. from 1928. Good old Buster just wasn't having any of that CGI in his films. Topping it off, they include a single shot from Jon Favreau's Lion King that was actually filmed in camera. I'm not making this up. Someone put the
Oh my gosh. This is something I absolutely hate. The live action Lion King. The all computer generated Lion King is called live action. This is how stupid we have gotten. That this is called live action. It makes sense that they say no CGI when they think this is real. We're cooked. We're cooked as a civilization, as film goers, when we think something like this is real. This is live action. This is true. We had cameramen out in the woods of Africa actually recording lions. We got their mouths moving and everything and put dialogue to it. Absolutely.
Lion King remake on a list called 15 movies that set to hell with CGI. Flavor Wire gives BuzzFeed tough competition with an equally daft list called 10 films surprisingly created without CGI, and it includes Visual Effects Oscar winner Inception, Visual Effects Oscar winner Independence Day, Visual Effects Oscar nominee Casino Royale, and even Visual Effects Oscar winner The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. Even Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which you would think was safe to put on the list, has CGI. Research does not exist in this dojo. All major studios have their actors do this no CGI song and dance for the press.
None of it's CGI.
He didn't want any CGI.
Actor Mark Hamill has now confirmed that BB-8 is a physical prop, not CGI.
There is a prop, but it's primarily CGI. Oh my gosh. It's like people, it's just like using the word AI. Oh my gosh, it's gonna steal our jobs. No, but someone who utilizes it, guess what? They're gonna get hired over someone that doesn't. Because that person who utilizes it is going to be able to do the job of like 5 people when someone who doesn't, guess what, gets terminated. Because one person can obviously do his job plus 4 others. It's weird how people just have these weird concepts about things without actually realizing the tools that they're meant to be utilized as.
Disney went to great lengths to promote BB-8 as a practical prop, or even as a real actor. And while he was puppeteered on set, he did end up largely as CG-8 in the final film. But in Mark Hamill's defense, he probably never knew. The majority of the CGI you see today is not only invisible in the film, it was also invisible on set. Actors can see a certain thing on set and assume that this ends up in the film just like that.
I only saw it on the set, I haven't seen it in the movie yet.
But they have no idea what goes on in post-production. Visual effects shooting used to involve very technical participation from the actors, and they would be very aware when they were filming a visual effects scene.
One day I had to go and put on this weird kind of tracksuit with tiny little ping pong balls. So I had to basically redo the scene, but by myself.
Set extensions always had large blue screens, and interaction with animated characters required the actor to first do a reference pass with...
Yep. And now that it's become so much easier to just do it in post, and that's basically their catch-all now. It's just like, oh, we'll have the VFX people fix it. We'll have the CGI people fix it. That the people don't even know anymore.
The prop or actor standing in for the animated character, then doing the actual shot without the actor, trying their best to memorize the timing and eyeline of the other actor's performance. Actors prefer to react to other actors and props they can see. And if these things are missing from filming because they will be added later, the actors are working in the blind. The scene with the unexpected party from The Hobbit was shot simultaneously on 2 differently sized sets, which was nothing short of a technological marvel. But Ian McKellen famously had a complete breakdown over it.
Well, that night I felt pretty miserable and thought perhaps has the time come for me to stop acting altogether.
Same thing happened to Mark Hamill in the Empire Strikes Back when he was stuck on Dagobah. He was the only person on set. All he had to act off of was an earpiece because there was a puppet Yoda in front of him, which was being manned from underneath the ground. And he would turn his head a certain... Again, I've listened to the behind the scenes too many times, and he'd hear the radio. My gosh.
I remember watching Infinity War at the premiere, and I look out a window and they told me there's going to be something tumbling, and what I see is so huge and has so much energy, and I just am so solemn and quiet. And I was like, oh my God, why didn't they tell me?
Actors in a disaster movie have very little chance of reacting realistically if all they have is a blue screen.
Yeah, that's why they use the what is it called? The volume? I think George Lucas called it. Where it's all done on nothing but mirrors, and everything is animated in front of them. The lava ground, the area they're in, it's shot in that space. I mean, sure, that's cool, and it gives the actor something to act off of. But at the same time, it seems like everyone's stuck in a ventilated room, and they no longer have to deal with going to the desert to shoot scenes or actual Of course, no one's going to go into a volcano, but you know. Pros and cons.
How did you get out?
Dad got me out.
Actors aren't alone in this. The camera and lighting department are also working in the blind when the thing they're filming isn't really there. The editor needs to see the movement in the frame in order to pick the right in and out points. And the more of these moving elements are missing and the more of the background is blue screen, the more the editor is working in the blind. And studios hate seeing a rough cut with the CGI elements yet to be added.
You know, every time the studio executives would see that scene, they go, oh, can't you just cut that scene? Do we need that scene? Because all they saw was, you know, a guy being lifted up on wires. And, you know, then eventually Arnold Vosloo would walk in with LED lights on his cheek, and he would start chewing for no reason. The studio was very unconvinced about that scene.
Even the visual effects.
Oh my gosh. I haven't seen the behind the scenes of that one, but it makes me interested. It really makes me interested.
Department ourselves have a problem with this way of filming, because CG characters that aren't in the footage will lack shadows and reflections. And adding shadows from a CG object that wasn't there can be a really tricky thing to do. Which is why we saw a massive increase in companies and departments dedicated to paint and prep, simply painstakingly removing elements from the frame. The CG character is animated on top completely manually, and the parts...
Yeah, I mean, there is the where you do it on a track, and everything, like from the camera movements to everything is precise, and you shoot the scene twice. Once with no one there, you just have it all mathematically in the thing where it knows where the camera needs to stop, where the focus needs to go, all that. And then you do it again with the actors, or you do it with the actors first, you get the timestamps, and then you do it again without. And then you superimpose the two on top of each other and cut out what you don't want, and then add it in and post. There are multiple ways of doing it. I think that way is probably the easiest when you want to remove stuff and you want to have like the actors' movements and everything actually there. Have the shadows actually there. That's probably the best way.
The actors that are not needed are painted away. That means the actors can just do the one main take with everyone acting with each other. The DOP can film it, the editor can edit it, and the studio can see the rough cut without panicking. This is only possible because visual effects have gotten so much better in the last 20 years. Furthermore, blue screen and green screen is not being used like it used to. No actor or journalist reporting from the set of Doug Liman's Edge of Tomorrow
all you need is kill.
Dare say that there was no CGI, because the whole set was wrapped in green screen. That was, after all, how you did massive amounts of set extension 10 years ago. Sam Mendes' 1917 did the same amount of set extensions for completely digital environments, but mostly without the green screens, because that's just how good visual effects are now. Today, it's not uncommon to completely skip the blue screen and just manually rotoscope everything frame by frame. Every film journalist who saw the B-roll footage of practical action and no green screen reported that 1917 was filmed practically. And BuzzFeed even put it on the previously mentioned unimaginably idiotic list of 15 films that said no to CGI, and it paid off big time.
91% of that film has a visual effect in it from digital doubles or environment extensions.
It must be tricky to count the number of visual effect shots in a film that is, in the end, one single shot, using visual effects to stitch together several minute-long shots, all with overlapping visual effects. But 1917 has visual effects in 91% of it, and it cannot in any way whatsoever even remotely be described as a movie that said no to CGI. For the burning CGI church, you would normally have used a blue screen here, but DOP Roger Deakins decided to use this light rig instead, hidden in plain sight, completely ignoring the need for keying. Since the character is out of focus, that means his edge is semi-transparent, and the lamps are showing through his edge, causing all sorts of edge problems for the compositor. And to go from this to this requires a lot more manual tweaking than if a blue screen had been used. But the benefit is that the light rig is throwing the proper lighting on the entire set, thereby helping the other task of the compositor, which is to make the whole shot come together, which is, by all accounts, the essential part of compositing, and much more important than an edge. But this guy's standing in front of the church for about 40 seconds, which is around 1,000 frames. So if you did compositing or roto on this shot, nice.
Give credit where credit's due. I like that. I like that he's like, nice. Well done.
Let me know in the comments if anything I assumed about it was true or false. The irony is that when visual effects people work harder than ever before to make visual effects invisible on set to support the actors will assume there's less visual effects work being done. And now we have them all running around saying no CGI about scenes that totally have CGI.
Yeah, because they don't know exactly what's going into the film. They're just involved in their part. there are scenes that have complete CGI that they're unaware of that they just probably think was shot in post. So for their part, they're thinking, oh, I remember in that Fast and Furious, that bomb was rolling down the hill, not realizing that it's definitely not the same thing because they only saw it for a matter of seconds as they were sitting in a car.
Journalists will assume the same thing and report that there is some kind of backlash against CGI and that Hollywood is returning to practical filmmaking. And while nothing could be farther from the truth, there's no getting around talking about this guy now. When Christopher Nolan wants to crash an airplane, he crashes an airplane. And while this scene did have visual effects and even CGI,
there were visual effects involved in that we had to clean up the tow ropes and we added jet blasts to the engines and CG trees to be blown around. But
this is not the same as Top Gun Maverick, where the real airplanes were removed and replaced with completely 3D computer graphics CGI. The airplane you see in Tenet is the actual airplane they filmed. His films have been nominated for 4 visual effects Oscars, but that doesn't necessarily mean everything is computer graphics. We talked to production VFX supervisor Paul Franklin about Inception, CGI, and winning visual effects Oscars for Christopher Nolan films.
I mean, the fact that it's called visual effects, I think it makes everyone think, oh, well, it's just the guys with the computers, people like me. But certainly the films that I've worked on, and certainly the 2 films that I won Oscars for, special effects were absolutely essential and, were equal partner in the process. Chris Nolan's scripts are very descriptive. They tell you what the story is, and you understand the emotions and the visual story that you want to tell.
Inception.
But they are not prescriptive. They don't tell you how you should do it. Chris wanted to show that Ariadne's control over the physics of this world begins to fall apart as soon as she becomes aware that they're in a dream, and she begins to panic, and it literally flies to pieces. Unlike some other films that are set in dream worlds, we didn't want anything visually to give away the nature of the dream until strange stuff starts happening, because you want to experience it with Ariadne.
Like, how did we get here?
As Ariadne realizes she's in the dream, and knowing that Chris would always want to try and get as much of this for real as possible, I started thinking about things that I'd seen that might achieve this look. And Zabriskie Point is this amazing counterculture artifact. And at the end of the film, it features a sequence in which somebody is watching a really fantastic modernist house, and it's being destroyed by a series of enormous explosions. And in her mind's eye, she sees this destruction go right down to a very intimate level inside the building, that more and more the building is getting blown up. It starts with huge pyrotechnic fireballs destroying it. And then it goes into this amazing slow motion sequence where you're seeing, when they blow the television apart, you see all the components of the TV come out. They blow up a refrigerator full of food, and there's like great lumps of meat flying everywhere and things like that. You see what appears to be like a spacecraft rolling past, and it's actually a box of Kellogg's cornflakes or something. They blow up a wardrobe full of clothes. They blow up a bookcase. All the books sort of are flying away like sort of giant moths, and all the pages flapping and undulating. You don't feel like these objects are falling. They just seem to float and tumble through the air. And we thought this was the perfect reference. The special effects part of it was that, of course, Chris wanted to do as much of this for real on the location. Can we go to a street in Paris and blow stuff up? Can we make explosions in the street which won't?
Oh, that must have been weird to get like I could just imagine them filing for that what's it called, where you have to register for like everything, whether it's even protests, like it's something in film. I have already forgotten it what it's called, but you have to like get permission. You have to get officers to basically because you're paying for a section of the street to be closed off for your own personal use. Yeah, that was to be interesting. What's your purpose for it? Oh, we want to shut off a few explosions.
Damage the street, and more importantly, can we protect our cast? Because Chris being Chris, he didn't want to shoot Leo and Elliot on a green screen and then composite them in later on. He wanted to put them right in the middle of it. And so Chris Corbold, our special effects supervisor, proposed to make props out of lightweight foam that we could then blow around with giant air mortars. So basically sort of a cannon that blasts compressed air or nitrogen out. and fires this debris out into the air. And then we would film this with these high-speed photosonics cameras to get the slow motion of it all. And you see the moment where Leo and Elliot are sitting there at the table and the explosions go off either side of them. All the shots where you see them sitting here, that is Leo and Elliot on location. You know, Corbold had designed it so that even though all this stuff is flying past them, it didn't even lift the napkin. Something like this bookcase blowing, the bookshelf there, which is a direct quote from Zabriskie Point, that is a compressed air cannon firing this stuff up into the air. And then in visual effects, what we did is we added all the dangerous stuff. So things like flying crockery and wine bottles and tables and chairs, all the stuff that just you wouldn't be able to do. When you see the facade of the building blow up and the great chunks of rock come out. In this moment here, where you see the guy standing at the fruit stall, the stuff that's really close to him is in camera, all the flowers flying up. But the big cardboard boxes flying everywhere, those are CG. And the boxes that
So I guess they removed a ton of stuff, like the streets were clean and just had the things that were planning on exploding, added everything else in post, just to make it seem more spectacular.
pushed by the secondary explosion, they are also CG elements.
And several of these passes sort of decelerate in mid-air independently of one another. So you have some debris going boom, and another chunk going boom in the same shot. And is that just because you shot it at such a high frame rate that you could time that out of the raw footage?
We shot it very, very high frame rate, and then we would change the speed of the frames. We would vary speed it in post. And we were able to then extract the debris from the different passes. Because the film was running so quickly, other than the moving material, there was next to no change between the frames. Something like this shot, everything here is, all the debris is created digitally in this. And then that shot where you see the cobblestones, that was actually built from a stills element. We shot still plates of the surface of the street, and then we mapped it into 3D. And so everything in that shot is CG. This shot is a combination of practical debris. You know, the chairs are being moved around, they're being pulled on wires. That's a practical motorbike that's being moved around. We're adding things like, you know, the tail light explodes. That's us doing that.
It's my experience with scenes that start out with a practical element, and the practical element is given to the visual effects company, and everybody loves it and want to build on it, that you very often get so many studio notes on fix this, fix that. You basically get CG comments for the entire image that in a lot of films you end up replacing it anyway.
This is true. You're absolutely right. And I've been there on movies where the notes have been so extensive that you end up just completely paving over everything with CG. That's not the case with Chris's films. He doesn't get studio notes. He's proved himself.
Yeah, he plans it out in advance, and everyone's just like, go ahead. Like one of the few A-list directors that basically have full autonomy when it comes, like it was Peter Jackson, Christopher Nolan, Quentin Tarantino. Yeah, there's a list of like A-list actors. Oh, James Cameron. I think Ridley Scott is still one of them. Yeah, that basically can do whatever they want, and they're given a free, like an open check to just get it done. There's no oversight. There's no micromanaging because they know it's going to be a hit film no matter what.
So many times, he doesn't need somebody to tell him how this is how you can make your film better. He already knows how to make it better. Chris is not afraid to use CG when it's necessary. But what he always does is he very cleverly, he always starts and finishes any of these set piece sequences with reality. It's always a real shot at the beginning and a real shot at the end. He's very collaborative. For instance, on The Dark Knight Rises, we showed how we could do a completely photorealistic version of the Bat helicopter. Because up to that point, I think he'd been concerned that the digital Batcopter would look bogus. And we would prove to him, we'd say, look, you know, here we are. One of these is the real thing. One of these things is not. Which one do you like? If he felt they both felt the same, then that's it. It went into the movie. You know, for instance, the folding street is a good example of that. That shot was designed by one of the CG supervisors at DNEG, Alison Wortman. Ali created this test animation showing how the folding mechanism might work. And we showed it to Chris, and he said, that's the shot.
Nolan certainly goes the extra mile to film things in camera.
But knew we were going to have to do the effect digitally.
In 2011, the Visual Effects Society gave Nolan the inaugural Visionary Award. And in his speech, he made it very clear that he knows exactly what you think that he thinks about CGI.
I feel a little guilty receiving it from you guys as somebody who often appears in the press talking about my use of CG like an actress talking about her use of Botox. And I'm as dependent on visual effects, probably more so than any other filmmaker out there. And I'm very, very grateful to and appreciative of all of the people, many of whom I've worked with in this room, who've helped bring my visions to life. We'll often sort of look in the background of a shot that isn't a visual effects shot, but is in between setups. So there'll be a ladder, and we'll get the visual effects supervisor and say, would you be able to take that out of the shot? And they say, oh yes, absolutely. We say, no, women now. If that joke didn't play here, it would never play anywhere.
Next time, we'll take a look at
Yeah. Because it's always the now.
how Nolan created Oppenheimer without CGI. That concludes part 2 of this series.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying this. A lot of nostalgia here too. Like just seeing the movies and going like, yep. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, because there's just so much that goes into filmmaking. A lot of people, like I'm not a huge, like I've mentioned before, like Christopher Nolan's hit or miss for me. Like I'll enjoy some things, but some things are just like, it wasn't for me. And it's just, but he's always spectacular. He basically gets what he wants, even though there are people who are like, that wasn't the best. Yeah, it's hit and miss. And then there are people who are like, no matter what, 100% faithful. Like 100% faithful.
You guys got a video? So bad.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Wait on that.